Hello and welcome into another episode of Lessons in Product Management. I'm your host, John Fontenot, and on today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down to chat with Daria Love, Director of Product Marketing at the Trans EU Group. Daria is a longtime product marketer, having spent almost 15 years in B2B SaaS as a product marketer, and she posts a lot of great content on her LinkedIn. It was one of those posts that I saw, and she was talking about the difference between product releases and product launches, and it really resonated with me. So I reached out and she was kind enough to accept the invite to come on the podcast and chat more about the topic. But we did cover a lot more ground than that. On this episode, we discussed dual roadmaps between product and product marketing, who owns product adoption, collaboration and customer and market research, the importance of segmentation, and so much more. I know you'll enjoy the conversation, so let's get to it. Hey, Daria, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, John. Nice to see you today.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. Thanks for coming on. Really excited to discuss this topic that I don't think is discussed enough between product managers and product marketers. So thanks for coming on and hashing it out with me.
Thank you for having me. I was really excited when I saw your message and all the topics you would like to discuss. It was like my dream come true, to be honest, to discuss all these topics with a product manager, not with a product marketer. So I'm really excited to do it today.
Yeah, same here. Same here. So before we kick off, could you give the listeners an introduction of like, who is Daria Love? What is your background? How did you get into product marketing?
Of course. Yes, I'm Daria Love. It's my real last name because this is the question I'm always getting. So just let's have this clear. And I've been working with B2B SaaS companies for the past 13 years in various marketing roles. I usually say that I'm everything marketing manager turned product marketer. So after years of kind of experimenting and trying to find my field in the marketing, I realized that product marketing is my jam. And that's what I started doing more intentionally, I would say, like 2016, when I realized that, I want product marketing, not everything in marketing. And at the moment, I'm still working with B2B SaaS companies, mainly in Europe, as in-house product marketer, as marketing consultant, a mentor, advisor. So I'm doing many different things and still kind of like exploring all the areas of product marketing. And this part of working with product managers and product management teams, product development teams, is definitely something that I talk about a lot, and something that is so that I live every day at work. So here I am today.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. Thank you. So many years in marketing, probably the last 9 or 10 years in product marketing. Super cool. What's been your favorite part of product marketing? Like if you had to get rid of the rest and you could only do one thing, what would that one thing be?
I think it would be go-to-market strategy and product launches, mainly because it involves working and coordinating many cross-functional teams. And that's what I like the most. It's very unpredictable. Anything and everything can happen. And I don't like boring work. So I know that things like positioning, messaging, they're exciting in a way. But on the other hand, it's more like working, at the background of everything what is happening. And I like being in the center and connecting people. And by connecting people, I mean internal stakeholders, but also customers and prospects. And I've always been this connector. So I think that's something that I would pick if I had to pick only one thing.
Yeah, I think that's something that we share because I feel like product marketers and product managers spend a lot of time doing alignment work. And it does make the job very interesting. And I think to your point, there's elements of product management and product marketing that are fun, but like for positioning, for instance, it doesn't change. Keep me honest here, but it doesn't change frequently, right? Like, you might have an ad campaign or an A/B test or something that changes frequently, but positioning typically lasts for a while, right? So like once you do it, it's fun to get there, but it's not something that you're like going back to and changing drastically very often, right? Am I right there?
Yeah, you're right. I think that most companies do it. They have their beautiful positioning statement document, and that's it. In many cases, unfortunately, I think that a good practice is to revisit that every 6 months
Hmm.
or at least once a year. But as you said, it's not something that happens multiple times a year versus product launches, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's more like deep work. Uh, Once it's done, like you really have to think it through. Like
Hmm.
if your positioning makes sense, it's not something that you're going to do for 1 month and then forget about it. It's something that is going to last. So definitely, and with product launches, you can have something new every month. You, every month can be a surprise in a way. Hopefully, I mean, hopefully it will be more like every quarter is a surprise, not every month.
Yeah.
But still, it's more engaging and it's more fun.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think we're touching on something that kind of like overlaps here with positioning because like take AI for instance, where in the last year it seems like every company is trying to reposition themselves as like an AI first company or an AI company. You have Canva, you have Figma, you have these no code tools, you name it. Everyone's kind of like putting AI as like we're the AI X, Y, and Z. And I think it's interesting because you have kind of the go to market external facing like messaging of that and how are we changing our positioning to take advantage of this technology wave and that impacts product roadmaps. So I'm curious to hear kind of like where do you see the natural overlap between that partnership with product marketing and product management?
I see this overlap in many spaces, especially in companies where it's not well defined.
Hmm.
This is something I saw many times that the role of product marketing and the role of product management, product development is not clearly defined.
Hmm.
There is also many cases when customer success is coming into play as well, or sales enablement. And then you have these blurry spaces where nobody owns it, but at the same time, everybody owns it. So for product marketing and product management, I think that one big overlap comes when we are defining go-to-market dates
Hmm.
and product roadmap. So from my perspective, product development, product managers, they own the product roadmap. So when something is going to be developed in the product, and then we have product marketers who, in my opinion, should own the go-to-market roadmap. And this is something that I also implemented at some companies I worked with. So we had two roadmaps. We had the product roadmap that was announced by the product manager, by VP of product, and you knew when something will be finished in the product, when the development will be finished. But that doesn't always mean that the same date will be the product launch. And that's why I had another roadmap, and it was product marketing roadmap over go-to-market roadmap, when you could see when we actually take this thing that was developed in the product to the market. And to make sure that, from my perspective, like product roadmap is very engineering driven. So the product manager consults with the engineering team and they know, okay, this is doable for this date, it will be ready. But it doesn't take into account so many factors that product marketing does. Like for example, like market readiness. Do we have enough research? Our internal audiences enabled? Or we're going to just take them by surprise? Hopefully not. But there are many aspects that product marketers take into account when they are creating the go-to-market roadmap that product managers don't. And the overlap happens when product managers want to like influence or dictate the go-to-market date.
Hmm.
Sometimes I understand the pain point on the other side because product managers also commit to some date. Like they have their manager, they have the board members, and they have to say, okay, this quarter we committed to deliver XYZ features. Okay, that's delivered. But there is also like unspoken expectation that it will be launched. But at the same time, there is early conversation when they are committing to some date with the product marketing to ask them, is it doable to launch it this date? Do you have enough information to start working on that? Like, when do you need the information? This proactive approach doesn't happen very often from my experience. So that's one point where I see the overlap. Another one is communication with internal stakeholders. And sometimes there is this situation where we don't know who should communicate about what. So there is the product manager and there is product marketer. Maybe they work together, but they didn't really discuss that. And then, for example, let's say that product marketing manager doesn't have the dates for internal enablement yet, but the product manager already comes and says, oh, this is launched, this is developed, available in the product, you can go and check it. Or customers already can see it and everybody's terrified. And it's good if they really work together on that aspect as well.
Yeah.
And to also manage expectations of the internal teams and to make them comfortable selling the product, because that's the end goal, that they will feel comfortable to take it to the market, because product managers cannot do it themselves. So that's why it's so important that they work with other parts. And product marketers are these perfect connectors, I would say. So they gather information from every side of the business, in fact. And we know how to translate that very information from the product manager or from the engineering team to the internal stakeholders, to the sales team, to the rest of the marketing team, to the customer-facing teams. And one more area that I would define would be product adoption. But this is something that is not only on the overlap of product management and product marketing, but I would say that it's an overlap of many business functions. And how I work with companies is that I usually come and do go-to-market gap analysis. And to do that, I meet with many stakeholders from different teams and ask them many questions about how they work together, how they are launching their products, how they're working on adoption, if there are any gray areas that they didn't cover. And this is the gray area that I saw at every single company I worked with. This is something that is rarely defined when it comes to ownership, responsibilities, but at the same time, I also believe that it's hard to assign it to one team. And that's why it needs this cross-functional collaboration approach. But it's definitely one of the areas that are an overlap for product marketers and product managers.
I was taking notes because there's many different follow-ups and directions I want to like go, but I can't go everywhere at once. So
Sure.
I'm going to start with the last thing you said and then work back towards like some of the overlapping areas that you mentioned earlier. So with adoption, okay, I think this is one of the bigger points of contention that I've had in my career, that I've had with marketing teams in general from like different departments. So I'm curious from Daria's point of view, where can product marketing help the most with adoption?
That's a good question. How I take it, my take on product adoption is that product marketers have to be experts on the market, on the customers, and on the product. And from this perspective, we can, for instance, segment market very well to understand like what market segments or user segments we are approaching, what are their pain points or what they care about, and how we can solve it. So what's the value for them? And I feel like product marketing can come with this deep research knowledge on the customers, on ICPs, on the product as well. And when this all comes together, we're able to support any of the teams that is working on product adoption. So from the product management point of view, like if they have information about what are the pain points for a particular segment, they can also, for example, interview or do user discovery on this specific segment, because maybe from the product usage data from some beta testers, we see that, okay, for this segment, we see bigger success, so they will be adopting faster. So let's do it. Then from the customer success perspective, for example, we can also help them deliver communications to the customers so they don't have to think about it. They don't have to think about what to say to them or how to say it. They can just do it. Like they have some natural areas for collaboration with the customers. Like they have meetings with them, like quarterly business reviews. They have maybe even support tickets when customers ask about something. And our role is to enable these teams so they have all this needed information that they may need, so they're relevant in the conversation with the customer. They're relevant in these communications. And so they also don't feel like, we're talking to everyone and to no one at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, right? Because I think some PMs and even like UX teams and researchers get kind of territorial with talking to customers, and product marketers are like, well, I need voice of the customer, I need NPS, I need to be able to get case studies, and like I need to be able to talk to the customer too. And one thing I found that works really well is when there's a partnership there between product marketing and the product, the other side of the product function, where it not operating in a silo, right? Like if you're building a case study as a product marketer, or you're working on voice of the customer, like letting the PM be like a silent observer taking notes. There could be interesting things that are learned through the lens of a different perspective, and vice versa, right? If product or research is doing customer interviews that are like generative research, there are definitely things that marketing can learn around, like how are the customers talking about their problem, and how are they like articulating the context, which matters when it comes to messaging and segmentation of how do we talk to which customers in what kind of way. So I found it work really well whenever there's not like a siloed effort in research and customer conversations, but it's very much like, two sides of the same coin. You have one coin, but they're together, right?
Yeah, I think that you nailed the main problem that I see working in silo. And that's not only for product managers and product marketers, but for go-to-market teams in general. That's why I really advocate for this holistic go-to-market approach, where we don't look at different teams as separate units, but it's one big unit that is working together on different parts of the goal. But at the end of the day, they have a common goal. And today, what you just described, product managers do user interviews. Okay. And then product marketers maybe do case studies, or they also need some voice of customer. And if they don't talk to each other, maybe they are just wasting a chance to learn more from the work that they're doing anyway. At the same time, when I'm working on case studies, for example, so if I want to approach some customer and I want to understand like who does it make sense to do a case study with, I go to the product analytics, or I ask sometimes maybe product manager to tell me like who has the highest usage of XYZ, because I want to create a case study to showcase some specific feature, for example, use case. And then on the other hand, I go to customer success and I ask them, is it the right time to talk to this customer? Maybe also sometimes I can ask customer support, maybe we had some problems with this customer. There are so many aspects in play that you really need to talk to all these business, all the parts of the business, to understand if this is the right customer, this is the right time, what questions to ask. Sometimes when I would be having like a case study interview, I would also tell the rest of the team, okay, I'm going to meet with this customer. This is my topic that I'm going to discuss with them. Is there something that you would like me to ask them? Because maybe since I'm meeting with them, I can ask them one more question on your behalf, and you can learn what you need to learn. Or at the end of the day, when I'm already finished with the interview and I see an opportunity, for example, for customer success team, or maybe for product management team to do some deeper research, to do some deeper interview on some topic, or to have a customer as an advocate, as somebody who could go to event to speak for us because they will be open to it. Like there are so many possibilities that you can open only if you only ask, if you think about other parts of the business, if you think about other people, not only about your single goal.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because it's so true, right? Like if the product manager and product marketer understand each other's goals and what you're trying to accomplish in a given quarter or year, then even if you're not in the same conversation, right? To your point, the product manager can say, hey, I have some things that I'm trying to learn. If you could squeeze in these other couple questions, or I know that Daria is looking for a case study. And I just had this great customer interview where I'm trying to learn something about the future, but they're going like they're giving me all this great feedback about how much they've enjoyed this other part of the product, and they'd be a great candidate to follow up with. So we can collect that information, share it with Daria, but then tee up another conversation so you can go deeper to get more of a case study. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Sorry, probably hear my dog in the background, but she's
It's
hanging
okay.
out.
My dog is waiting outside of the door. I didn't let him in because I knew that he would be willing to join the conversation. So he's waiting.
Yep, mine is very much trying to be part of the conversation right now. So, but
I get
cool. So there's another part I wanted to follow up on. So many follow-ups, but I want to stick with segmentation for a little bit because I
Yeah.
preach to product managers all the time that one, understanding the product marketing function is critical. And one of those aspects that I think overlaps is segmentation because on a number of levels, as a product person, like I need to know who I'm building for. So when I'm speaking to a customer and I'm identifying problems that we could solve in the product, I need to know what segment does this customer represent? And does the rest of that segment have this problem, or is it unique to this one customer? And this helps us in the prioritization effort. But when it comes time to actually releasing the product, and like maybe we release to a test group, which is another thing I want to follow up on in a bit between releases and launches. But um, maybe we do go to GA, right? And now we're trying to measure our results. But if we measure against our entire customer base, our data is going to be skewed. Like we should only be measuring against the percentage of the segment that we actually launched it for, because conceivably that's the segment who's going to benefit from it. So it impacts our metrics, right? So I don't know if there's a question there, but just kind of a rant about why I think segmentation is so important. So is there anything you want to follow up on there?
Yeah, I think it's important not only from the product management perspective, but from the business perspective. So it all starts when you say that we need to prioritize the product roadmap. We need to decide what is going to be on the roadmap and how we are building for. It's about the business in general. Who are we going to sell it to at the end of the day? And how is it going to help us to achieve our business goals? So that's why I believe that you need to have all of that defined before you start building your roadmap when you are in the ideation stage. And that's why working with product marketing is beneficial, to make sure that what you put on the roadmap is actually something that should be on this roadmap. Because I believe that there is nothing more frustrating for a product manager than working on something for months and then finding out that nobody wants to use it because maybe the target audience wasn't big enough. Maybe, as you said, it was the problem of one single customer and it was just blown off proportion, um, and made as a case for this segment. But then if you're able to identify the segment and identify maybe specific customers in the segment and talk to more of them, then you can see if there is any pattern or not. And I also really like talking to non-customers. So you identify the segment and you talk to the group of companies, people that have the characteristics of the segment but are not your customers. So you're getting out of your bubble to see
Yeah.
if this is the problem that you can solve, that you can scale, not only some one-time solution for a small group of customers.
Yeah, I love that reply, right? Because as product managers, we often get into our myopic view of the customer. And even in the best case where product managers do understand segmentation of our customer base, to your point, what if our customer base is 1% of the entire market, right? Is this thing that we're going to do going to open up 2, 3, 4 more percent of the market that exists? And product marketing traditionally is the function that is doing most of that market research, even though I do think that should also be a shared overlap. In general, I think information share is kind of a common theme that we have here, where there should be a constant flow of information gathering and sharing between the functions and then to the broader organization to help shape strategy. And that should be happening early, because I think the point that you made that I'll try to like re-articulate is that because you have goals, right? Product management has goals around product adoption and potentially revenue, depending on the organization. But at the end of the day, like if you're not building for a big enough audience, or you're not solving a problem that represents a problem that a large amount of customers or the market has, then it's going to put product marketing, it's going to put the tactical marketing function, it's going to put sales and customer success in a bad position, because you're speaking to a tiny portion of the customer base or the market writ large. So yeah, I think it's all interconnected, and it's so crazy to me how siloed organizations get when it really is so interconnected.
Yeah, it is. And another silo that I see when it comes to defining the roadmap is talking to customers that you don't want to have anymore. Meaning,
Mm.
there is a company that was built 10 years ago. They started with SMB customers and they were building for them. But as the company was growing, the business was scaling, now they want to be mid market. But they're still talking to these SMB customers, building solutions for them, trying to attract their mid market customers with these very solutions, but they're not interested and they're like struggling so much. And then there is the marketing team is bad, the sales doesn't sell, it's all this like customer success is this team is that. But the real issue is that you don't know who you are building and selling to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real issue. And the earliest you understand that this is something to cover at the very beginning of your custom product development roadmap, the better, because you will save yourself so much time and frustration, and you will be able to reach the goals that you want to reach, but you will be intentional about it versus
Yeah.
kind of like trying to do something. There is some piece of information from the site and a little bit of information from this site, but it doesn't build a full picture. It's like a game I'm playing with my daughter sometimes, that we have a piece of paper and we fold it into smaller pieces. And then I start drawing on a smaller piece, but she doesn't see that. Then she unfolds on the other side that I don't see and she draws something. And then we take turns. And then at the end, we open the full unfolded and then we see the picture. And it's like a little bit of what I drawn, a little bit of what she did, but it's like all over the place and we don't know what should be the result. Everybody's just doing something. And this is how I
Yeah.
sometimes see the go-to-market strategy, that everybody's just
Yeah.
doing a little bit of something, but they don't really know what's on the other side that somebody else is writing or drawing.
Yeah, that's a great analogy and a fun game I should try with my daughter. So thanks for
It
the
is really
tip.
good.
Cool. So I do want to end on one last question because I want to
Yeah.
circle back to it. I think it's really important to get down into the tactical, like how should this look? So going back to like one of the disconnects between product management and product marketing around, okay, the code is complete. We could
Mm-hmm.
push this code to production. I think there's a variety of ways we can handle it, right? There's staging environments, there's limited releases, and then there's obviously the general release, general availability.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about the disconnect between a lot of the product management perception of I've released the code, we should be driving marketing. Well, in reality, what should that look like from a interim standpoint? Like from your perspective, what is ideal? Is it, waiting to release to production entirely, or is it like, hey, let's get this out in production to a limited sample set, or like what is that perfect scenario to you?
I'll give you my favorite answer, which is it depends. So it depends on the situation, on the product itself that you're
Mhm.
releasing, how big it is, on the timeline when it comes to, for example, internal enablement, on the timeline when it comes to the marketing campaign, on the tier of this product launch, if it's tier one, big woohoo launch, or if it's just, some product update
Mhm.
that maybe nobody will really notice, and it's just some nice to have item. But when it comes to ideal scenario, there is only one thing that I think should happen that guarantees the ideal scenario is involving the product marketer early in the process. It means coming to the product marketer when you are working on your product roadmap, when you're in the ideation stage,
Mhm.
and they can help you by doing competitive intelligence research, for example, by doing market research, customer research. They can bring you a lot of information that could be useful for you when you are creating the roadmap. But at the same time, they will be able to plan their roadmap for go to market. And then they will decide if it makes sense to release it the same day. Sometimes there are also some technical aspects like, I know, some code freeze, or you have to do something. It has to be released now because it's embedded into some old piece of code, and you cannot just remove it. You cannot just freeze it. It has to happen. So you don't really have a choice. You just have to release it because it will be visible to the customers. You have to do something about it.
Yeah.
But one thing that I did, for example, with my recent customer, was that we agreed with the product management team that whenever we discussed what's on the roadmap, they will also give us information. Does it have to be released whenever the code is finished? Will it be visible to customers straight away or not? Sometimes they cannot control it, but every time when they could, we would negotiate with them. Okay, so for this one, we need maybe 2 more weeks for the internal enablement. Especially for sales-led companies, that is crucial because product managers or even product marketers, they cannot really deliver their business result on their own. We need to work with a sales team, with customer success team. They need to be enabled so they are comfortable taking that to the market. They are taking it to the market, not us, in fact. We're helping them to do it. And sometimes it makes sense to launch something, to communicate something before it's ready in the product, before the code is fully finished.
Hmm.
Because from the market perspective, you want to have, for example, the mind share. So you want to be top of mind provider for XYZ. And you know that that's what happens with AI now. There are some industries that are like more like laggers. So
Mhm.
when it comes to, let's say, MarTech solutions, they were talking about AI embedded in their product like 2 years ago. But there are industries like legal tech, like procurement tech, supply chain management that are more regulated, and they had to take more time to do their research, to check if it's compliant with whatever law they have to comply with. And now they are trying to catch up. So they want to claim that, well, we're first, for example. They already want their customers to know we're the innovators. It depends on the goal of your launch. If the goal is to just grab the attention of your target audience, then you need to shout loudly and you need to show them the value. You don't really need to have the code finished in your product to show the value to your customers. On the other hand, you can, for example, open a wait list. You can open a beta tester list. You can do so many things before you push the button to enable that in the product to help you with the final launch. You can test it with a smaller group of customers that requested that, for example, and then have their feedback to improve the product before you launch. Have testimonials from them that you can use within your campaign. You can maybe even have some case study ready before it's fully available to everybody.
Yeah.
So there are so many possibilities that you need to sit down and really discuss and make a mindful, intentional decision about the date. It's not about the code being ready, because there are so many other aspects you need to take into account. And
Yeah.
I would say that if your code is ready, you are like 1/3 ready to launch. Because this aspect of internal enablement, customer user enablement, and then the marketing campaign has to be there. So if that is not done, you are like 30% on your timeline, on your roadmap.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for product managers to think about it. Like what I do, like I try to work with product managers backwards. So I tell them, okay, we want to launch on 5th of May, for example. And look, like we need to cover this, this, and that. This takes this much time. We need to have time for this. And if you give me information about the product launch happening on 20th of April, and we have 2 weeks window to do something that should take 6 weeks, for example, it's not doable.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to look at it from this perspective.
Yeah.
That you need to know what are the goals and what basically makes sense in this specific situation.
Yeah. No, I think it makes a ton of sense because nothing is black and white. It's all nuanced, right? And it depends, I think, is a shared favorite expression between product management and product marketing. So that's another overlap. But when you were mentioning launching before the release, right? Like there's a timing thing, there's an inflection point, there's a big shift. You want to get ahead of it. Like the natural like product ethics red flags start popping in my head of like, are we selling vaporware? Are we promising something we don't have yet? And what's the risk if we actually can't finish building it because we run into some technical blocker? So those are the things that fire in my head. But then I love your point about like, you could do it a different way. You could do a beta sign up. You could do some type of like interim step to not promise that you have it, but like it's coming and you can sign up for early access to it. On the flip side, what risk from a product marketing standpoint do you see in releasing code to production before you're ready to actually launch the product? And I'll give you an example. So recently in this enterprise SaaS product that I oversee for my company, it's Lumina, we were introducing some new functionality that we knew some customers wouldn't want, but we knew that some of the future customers that we were going after would need. And so we didn't foresee a bunch of adoption from current customers because we were going after a different market segment. So we just released to production well before we were ready to start launching in terms of like our go-to-market activities. And our mindset was, well, if our current customer finds it and turns it on, great. Even if before we've done like a webinar or release notes or like anything that's like external facing, So from your standpoint, I know the answer is probably it depends, but like what are some risks that you see as a product marketer of product managers behaving that way, where product teams will release features before the launch timeline is ready?
One big risk for me is not having the internal enablement done right. And that's, if I had to choose one thing that has to happen before you release something in the product, is the internal enablement part. So when it comes to marketing campaign, as you said, like some marketing asset, release notes, all of that, that can happen later. In many cases, customers won't even notice that you released something new in the product until you tell them, until you have a big shiny arrow in the product saying, click here, it's going to do miracles. But when it comes to the internal teams, especially customer support team, customer success team, sales team, you are putting them in the risk of being taken by surprise by a question from a customer. And then how does it look like from the customer's perspective? They are going to talk to an expert that they are talking to. They only know Tom from some company because this is their go-to person. And then they go to Tom and they ask them, oh, I saw this thing in the product. Can you tell me more about it? Like, how can I use it? Like, you know, my use cases, you know, my business well. We've been working together for 3 years. And Tom is like, oh, I'm sorry, like, have you seen the product? Like, Tom doesn't know what to say. So right here, you are like jeopardizing the relationship for once. Then you are wasting opportunity for product adoption, because they could have a great conversation and it could be a customer that would adopt the feature like right away, because the customer success manager will be able to basically sell it to them. The same happens when a salesperson is going to a meeting with a prospect, and maybe the prospect is using a demo account already and they saw it in the demo account, and the salesperson doesn't know that this is available. They don't know what to say. So from my perspective, these are the people, the customer facing teams that are on the front of the product. They are the face of the product and of the company for the customers. So you need to think about them. I know that sometimes it's tempting, I would say, to just release something because it's ready and you just want to see, maybe you want to test something. And if that's the case, tell them about it. Just, it's about proactive communication from my perspective. Sometimes it's not a big thing. It's some improvement to the product, some update. You don't need a big enablement campaign, training, whatever, but you need to tell them, like, next Monday, we're going to release update to XYZ feature. And this is like too long to read about the feature. If you get any questions from customers, you can direct them to me, for example, as a product manager. So I can take it from there. I can maybe give them a demo. I can talk to them. But you need to think about them. You need to really understand where they are and what situation you put them in. And from the risks perspective, from product marketing point of view, I think that that's the main risk. Like when it comes to internal enablement and user adoption, that you are basically putting yourself in a risk of wasting this opportunity for user adoption because, for instance, the tutorial is not ready and they won't know how to use it, or they won't really understand what's the value for them. So these are the risks that I would define.
Yeah, I always tell product managers that empathy is not reserved for the customer, that we should empathize with our internal partners as well. And I don't like saying stakeholders because I think it creates these negative connotations. Just the way that it's used is a negative word. So I like to say partners. But I think that's good food for thought for us as product managers to empathize with the fact that like we need our product marketers, we need our sales team, we need our customer success teams to be successful, for our products to be successful. And so we should slow down just a hair to be considerate of what do our internal partners need to like help them help us, right? And like as an
Yes.
organization, we're all one team anyway. So we should really think that way of like, I like basketball. If I make a bad pass to the shooting guard, they're not going to be set up to, to make the 3-pointer. If I throw the alley oop too high, my center's not going to be able to dunk it. So sorry for anyone who's not a basketball fan in the analogy there, but I think it holds, right? Like you have to set up your teammates for success.
Yeah, and when I'm thinking about it, I feel that product managers already have this feeling with engineering teams. They know they need to set them for success. They know
Mm-hmm.
they need to deliver all the information, the scope of work, everything has to be clear because otherwise they won't be able to even start working and they won't deliver what you need them to deliver. You have to be very specific, very explicit, and you need to enable them all the way from the beginning of development till the releasing in the product. And the same should happen with other partners. I like that, and I will steal that from you. In the business, like you also need to enable them. So your work as product manager doesn't end when the code is released to the product.
Yeah.
That's not the end of the story. I would say that's the beginning.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Daria, this has been a fantastic conversation. I feel like we could probably go for another hour, so we'll have to do a round two. I won't keep you here for
Sure.
another hour, but thanks for coming on. Before we wrap up, where can the listeners find you? Where are you most active online? Where can they learn from you?
I'm most active on LinkedIn, so feel free to follow me, to add me to contacts. Um, I'm sharing my thoughts on product marketing, on go-to-market, on collaboration between product marketers and other functions in the business. I try to be regular, but it's sometimes difficult, but still, yeah. So go to LinkedIn and find me. I'll be happy to connect.
Sounds good. I'll link your profile in the show notes. Again, Daria, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed the
Thanks.
conversation.
Thank you for having me, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you for joining us for another lesson in product management. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a rating and review to let us know how we're doing, how we can improve, and ideas for future episodes. Until the next lesson in product management, go out and kill it.